The evil that we create, it will live long after us. Thankfully, also, the good also does leave behind. Unless you have completely avoided Nigerian social event media recently, because you might be asking, why is Sarah talking like this? And in the past 2 weeks, there have been stories. We first heard of the P Square drama, which oh, I just followed one of the episodes, just one out of eight, or is it 9 episodes? I just listened to one, and that was because of the furor that I was hearing, about the stories and all that I saw about it on social media. And then, of course, I'm a lawyer. And so recently, sometime last week, the Lagos High Court, directed the Administrator General of the state to take over the estate of a billionaire that died some years back, just because his family was squabbling over inheritance. And it got me thinking, and it got me thinking, and it got me thinking. And I said, I must talk about this. I must share about it, because increasingly we're seeing dysfunctional families. We're seeing families that are estranged, and siblings that can't, and it has nothing to do with being polygamous or monogamous. Sometimes there are families, same mother, same father, and they just can't seem to get along. Sometimes it's not even the inheritance. Sometimes there's nothing to inherit really, but they just can't seem to get along. And as society, because family is the first social strata of society, if it's not going well in families, then it won't go well in the society. So it's something that I'm really, really passionate about, and that we must talk about, especially to us parents. Because the truth of the matter is that families are complicated. We hear what people say. Like, for example, I listened to episode, was it 8 of Peter Okoye's story, but and a lot of people listened to all the episodes, but we can listen to those episodes, but not the backstory, because there's always a backstory to these things. And even when we hear everybody's version, if everybody came out and gave their own response to all the episodes, they're things only the people inside the family can truly understand. The now nuisances, the setting of what was said, the way it was said. Because when I come out and I tell a story, I will tell it, in a most dispassionate voice most times. But when the story is being enacted or being said, sometimes the voice, the tone of the voice, the way the voice, projected can be totally different from how the storyteller is telling that story. Now, but during that episode that I listened to, one particular account caught my attention when Peter spoke about his relationship with the woman who later became his wife, and the birth of their son, and what he described as opposition for members of the family. And that's really what brought about this topic, because I'd been thinking about it, and we all think about it when people die and their children start to, quarrel, or even when siblings quarrel. The first thing we ask is, where are the parents? You know, so, we tend to look at the latest fight, but I'm looking at years back down the line and asking myself, when did this really begin? Because what happens at age 40, 50, was planted at age 7. The seed of what happened, it was planted at age 10, age 15. And sometimes it begins with simple questions that might not have any um, inkling as to what it will grow into. Simple questions just like, why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like your sister? Or statement of facts, categorical statement of facts, like your sister is the responsible one. You are so useless. You are so very, very on together, you know. Or Things like, your brother has always been selfish. He doesn't think of anybody, he's very self centered. Or your sister doesn't care about anybody in this family except herself. A lot of times, we as parents are the narrators. We tell our children stories about one another, about themselves, and eventually these stories become their truth. So, I want us to think about these things. And like I said, the phone lines are open 07000 and 09155 And the toll free number is 0800 You can talk and listen and call us to tell us what has happened in your own family. If you're close, why you're close. If you're not close, why you are not close. And what part has your parents, played in the state of your relationship with your siblings. We will go for a music break now. And when we come back, I will talk about we will open those phone lines and you will talk about your own side of this great topic, sibling rivalry. And we'll also talk about the weapons that families use against one another. So we'll go on the music break now. Please don't change your dial and see me at the other side of this. Okay, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. The music that just played was Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And there's something beautiful, appropriate about that title today because we teach our children far more than manners, education, and religion. We teach them how to see one another. And today's topic, if you're just joining us, is about sibling rivalry and how parents contribute to sibling rivalry amongst their children. Our phone lines are 07000 and our toll free number is 0800 The phone lines are open now and you can contribute, comment, or ask a question on this so important topic of sibling rivalry, and most especially the part parents play in promoting this state between the children. Now, a lot of times when a wealthy man dies, before the funeral program has even been put away, everybody is in court. Somebody, a child, or a wife, most times child, is challenging the will. Another refuses to sign documents. Someone has gone to the house and changed the locks. And someone is saying, Daddy promised me this house. Another person is saying, Mommy told me this land or this jewelry was mine. And everybody says, everybody looking from outside the family says, money has scattered this family. But sometimes I wonder, is it really money that has scattered the family? Or did money simply reveal the cracks within the family? Because sometimes it's not even the inheritance that's the issue. It's not, sometimes the person fighting for against the will or against the desires or against, fighting for the property may even have much, much more than what they're fighting for. So sometimes I feel that the inheritance is just the battlefield. It's just a new battlefield because the war has started years before. A child who has spent maybe 30, 40 years believing his brother was daddy's favorite may interpret an unequal inheritance as final proof. A daughter who's always felt invincible may suddenly fight for a piece of land she doesn't even need, she will never go to. And why? As I said earlier, it maybe because of the inheritance that parties are even fighting. It's just to establish a fact that has been missing all their childhood. So sometimes the child who refuses to cooperate with everyone else suddenly finds that she or he has something that everybody needs, maybe their consent, a signature, and perhaps for the very first time in their life, everybody has to listen to them. So the fight becomes, aha, you ignored me before, eh? Now you people will need me. And now I'm going to show you that all the times you ignored me was to your peril. But does that excuse bad behavior? Definitely not. Childhood wounds are not a license to destroy people in adulthood, but I want us to see and understand why people act the way they do, because that is the reason sometimes why people act the way they do. Because even though we may grow up, childhood memories never leave us. They say the hardest person to offend is a child, because that child grows up with that offense, and that's what plays out in a lot of our families. So it's not sometimes the inheritance. Sometimes, like I said, the inheritance is just the new battlefield. There have been other battlefields in the past. And so they just see this, okay, mommy and daddy that has been curbing you, or has been telling me to, relax for you. They finally gone. So I can now do my heart's desire and show you who you really are, or who I really am, or why I've just been keeping quiet for you all this while because I was respecting daddy and mommy and honoring their wishes that we should not fight. But now that they're out of the way, then my true colors can come to play. But the question I want us to ask really, is that what's the point of leaving our children wealth inheritance if they cannot sit around one table to discuss it? Then what exactly did they inherit? Was it money? Property? Or was it resentment, anger, bitterness? The inability to sit down with one another and to even be a family. Let me ask my listeners today, do you think parents should discuss their wills with their adult children before they die? Yes or no? Would you think that will reduce conflict? Or do you believe that your property is yours and nobody is entitled to an explanation about how you choose to distribute it? Like I said, our phone lines are open. 07000 917 09155917 and 0800 1234917. Now, another thing that we do as parents is to create division within our families. So there's daddy's camp and there's mommy's camp. I know a family, true story. 8 children, or I think 9 children actually. Same mother, same father. But today, some of them hardly talk to one another. Some of them don't even call one another. They send text messages or they use intermediaries to talk to one another, cousins, children, to talk to one another. And this suddenly appear when everybody became adults. Stories were told, alliances were formed, and children became involved in their parents' disagreements. So much so that they formed camps, those that were siding the mother and those that were siding the father. And I find that incredibly sad. Imagining sharing a childhood, a home, parents, Christmases or Ilayas, meals, memories, and decades later, you're practically strangers. Parents, please hear me out on this one. Do not recruit your children into your battles. If you're angry with your husband, your children should not become your army. If you have a problem with your wife, your son or your children should not become the person to whom you pour out everything you dislike about their mother. And when one of your children offends you, be very careful about discussing that child with the other child and pointing out all that child's failures and all the things that they've done and all their character defects. There's a difference between please talk to your brother, I'm worried about him, or please convey this message to him in a proper way, not an accusing way. And that your brother Sha, he's always been selfish, doesn't care about anyone but himself, because you see that's what they're going to remember. You're recruiting an ally by saying that, because the next thing is even mommy, his mother said it, that this is how he is, and this is truly how he is. Even his mother said it. That's what the other child will be saying. So don't make your children choose camps and don't label them. The stubborn one, the successful one, the troublemaker, the brilliant one, my doctor, my favorite one, the generous one, the selfish one, all the labels that we give our children, sometimes in jest, sometimes seriously. They do affect the way they see one another. And sometimes they will spend the rest of their lives playing the roles we give them or trying to differentiate themselves from the roles that we've given to them. So, parents listening to me, have you ever complained about one of your children to another child? And for those of us who are siblings, did you grow up feeling that your parents are the favorite? And how has that affected your relationship with that sibling today? And that's very, very, very important question. I want us to take a thought about it. Think about it as we go on another music break, because I also want the music that we play today to reinforce the lessons that I'm trying to teach. So we'll be playing We Are Family by Sister Sledge. Think about the questions that I've asked as we listen to the music. And then when we come back after the music break, I'll love to have your answers, and I'll show us as parents what we should do to avoid sibling rivalry amongst our children. together as we walk, just like birds of a feather. I won't tell, but I'm just saying, we can't get close. Living life is fun and we just because to get our share of this world. You can and I goes inside. Thank you for staying with us. You know, the song that we just played, We Are Family, it sounds so simple in a song, doesn't it? But sharing blood doesn't automatically create friendship. And family relationships have to be nurtured too. If you're just joining us on Life with Tara today, we've been talking about sibling rivalry with a look at the part parents play in creating dysfunction amongst their children. And you know, I thinking back on this, the thought that kept on ringing in my brain and in my mind was the Julius Caesar line in or Shakespeare's line rather in Julius Caesar, which says the evil that men do lives after them. And I thought to myself, the evil that we parents plant in our children's minds when they're growing up lives after us. Now, that even makes it more interesting and more complicated when our children grow up and they marry and somebody new enters into the family. The person who wasn't there for the childhood stories, who doesn't understand why everyone laughs when a particular story is told and has to be told, the back end of the story. Who doesn't know that this brother and this sister have been competing since primary school or since birth. And sometimes spouses can deepen family divisions. I want us to acknowledge that because some partners some spouses isolate their partners, some feed grievances, some interpret everything the in-laws do negatively, and that happens. I don't want us to um, let go of that. But also as parents, we must be careful because there's a sentence parents say too easily. Ha, my son, he changed after he married that woman. Or my daughter wasn't like this until she married him, or you know. And sometimes it might be true that their partners have an unusual hold on our spouse, on our children. And sometimes it might just be that our children have just grown up, you know, that they now have a wife, children, husband, or children whom they have to consider. Or maybe they've just learned to say no, finally. Maybe they've just been able to create boundaries between themselves and, their siblings or you as parents. And maybe it's not the spouse that was creating the problem. Maybe it's your child, really. And maybe again, that it's even their partner that is helping them find the courage to address something that has bothered them for years. We must learn to distinguish between alienation and boundaries. And please, don't recruit the rest of your children against one child's spouse because That's how it happens. Sometimes they are close until adulthood, and then they marry, and then we see the divisions. And those are the kind of divisions I've been speaking about. Don't make your son prove that he loves you by fighting his wife, or vice versa. Don't make your daughter choose between her husband and her family every Christmas, every year, every season that you have to go and join up with other members of the family, and you say no, this is the way it is done in our own house, and you don't give them any concessions, you know. So, what I've been giving all these scenarios and all these uh, examples. What really can parents actually do? So I'll let Tumikos make this as practical as possible. If you have two, three, 5 or 10 children, how can you reduce the likelihood of sibling rivalry becoming lifelong hostility? One, and I hope you're writing it. I hope you have your biros, your pens, your paper, because this is so, so important. And if we get this right in our families, I can assure you that our family structure would grow, would deepen, and the society will be better off for it. Stop the comparisons. Your sister can do it better. Look at your brother. Look at your elder sister. Look at your younger sister. Why can't you be more like him? Why can't you be more like them? Even positive comparisons can create competition. Praise your child's strength without using another child as a measuring stick. Remonstrate your child without using another child as the way forward, and even if you must do it in the appropriate way that it does not bring about competition and make the child think that you're comparing them unfavorably to the other child. Two, do not have favorites. We can all see, and it's this sibling rivalry has been with us for years, and it will be unfortunately be with us. I remember the biblical story of Esau and Jacob, and the part their mother played, Rebecca, because she was the one that helped our son, the younger son Jacob, to defraud his brother of his inheritance. She was an active participant. That means she chose sides against Esau. She took sides with Jacob against our other child. And some people say there was a prophecy. She didn't have to be the one to enable that prophecy come to pass, but she took sides, and it shows how parents can be, And also, Jacob himself also favored Esau, but at least his wife had the upper hand in all of this. So it's natural. Sometimes there are just some children that we connect more easily with. Maybe they're with the same temperament, so we understand them better. We see ourselves in them. It's human, but that connection must not turn into favoritism. That everybody knows, your children, everybody knows that this one is the apple of mommy's eye, or this one is the apple of daddy's eye. And then even when they grow up and they're established and they're doing well and they're living on their own, you know, be particularly careful so that if one child is more successful, more generous, you tend to, you know, side with that child. You won't be able to tell the child the truth, maybe because of the things that the child is giving you. So sometimes favoritism might not even come up in childhood, it might be in adulthood, when the child has established themselves and has made you proud, and then you start to side with that child against other children. So don't make the others or your children feel that their value depends on what they can provide, who they are. Stop the favoritism. Don't have a special child that you would favor amongst all your other children. That's two. Three, never make your child your confidant against another. And what does that mean? When you're having a challenge or a problem with one child, don't speak to the other child about that child. Go and meet that child, talk to that child. You can report children to one another, but in a way of talk to your brother, or this is what has happened. This is not reporting the child to the sibling, and then allowing the sibling to now become judge between both of you that are disputing. So don't build a coalition, don't build a camp against within your family. Don't use your hand to divide your family by building camps. You know, that's number three. Number four, don't force the easy child to always give way. And I'll explain because we do this a lot. There's a child that is easygoing, very, you know, does is not temperamental, and there's another child that is forceful, very aggressive and very strong-willed. There's a tendency to always placate the stronger one, and tell the easygoing one to give in all the time. Sometimes that builds resentment. So things like, I leave it for your brother now. You know how he is, don't disturb me. You know how your brother or your sister does, just, bear it, don't worry. There's something Yoruba say, for one, just put it in your mind and you know, just be calm. Don't allow him to take it. Don't worry. But what have we taught the difficult child by saying this? It's that bad behavior works. And what have we taught the accommodating child is that their feelings matter less because they are easier to manage. So the child that has been good, that has been laid back, that has been easy, to go with, just suddenly wakes up one day and says, you know what, mommy and daddy are gone. I've taken all this rubbish from you. I'm not taking it anymore. And that builds resentment. So that resentment now comes out when mommy and daddy leave. And you don't want that. So I think you should be fair. That's what I'm trying to say. That we should be fair. The fact that a child's temperament favors us or makes the child more prone to our attention does not mean that we should forget the child that is quiet and that will not give us any problems. Then teach conflict resolution. Children should know how to disagree. It's not all the time that you should be the arbiter or mediator amongst them. I always say that my kids can sell me if they found a willing buyer that will pay their price, because I rarely get into their troubles. When they are fighting with one another, please go and sort yourself out. You know, don't take sides. And if they bring it to you, both of them have to bring the problem to you and then you sort it out. So teach them how to resolve conflicts by themselves. Teach them how to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, that hurt me, I don't agree with you, I need some space. You know, teach them to understand that you can fight, but your fight must not be um, such as that would damage the relationship forever. And don't allow bullying between siblings. Don't excuse cruelty. If one child is constantly humiliating, excluding, or intimidating another, intervene. Then you can intervene. But if it's not a matter of humiliation, intimidation, or cruelty, then leave them to sort themselves out. And when they do marry, respect their adult relationships. you know and finally, plan your estate, right? We've seen a lot of wills being contested. So let me give us an example, which was something that a friend shared with me that her father did. When he turned 70, he's still alive. He hasn't died yet. And it's 80 something, I think, over 85 now. But when he turned 70, he had children from multiple women. He wrote his will. And not only did he write his will, on his 70th birthday, he called all his children and he read the will to them and told them, this is what I'm giving you, and this is what I'm giving you. This is what I'm giving you, and this is what I'm giving you. And then he said, for some of you, this is yours, but you won't take possession of it until so, so, so. He gave conditions. He wrote his will very well written. And and then the last thing he told them was, look, this is what I've thought about, and that's why I wrote this will. If any of you are unhappy and you have questions about why I did and shared my property the way I shared it, please come and meet me. I will tell you why. I thought that was very fascinating, but I also understand that it may not work for every family because some people might end up killing their parents. But the thing about it is that if the man dies, there's that there's zero likelihood that anybody is going to fight over the property, because as it is now, everybody knows what they own, and some of them have even taken possession of their, because the conditions that were given, some of them have lapsed, so they've taken possession of their inheritance, and everybody is fine with it. So nobody, these years after, nobody's coming to say when the man dies that I didn't like this, because they had the opportunity to talk to him, and he had the opportunity to explain to them why he did what he did. So that might help somebody that is listening today, you know, that you could do that, and I'm sure that it would dissolve. Or you give them life. Let everybody know. Share your property while you're alive, so that everybody knows what um is theirs and what is not theirs. Then encourage your children to have relationships with each other, not through you. Let siblings call each other directly. Let them resolve their disagreements. I've said that. Don't be the pass switchboard through which every relationship passes, so that when you die, the network collapses. You know. And before we go, finally, I want to charge us today that we should look at our children, especially as parents, not individually this time, but look at the relationships between them. What do you see? Is there a child everyone gangs up against? Is there one who gets away with everything? Is there one who is constantly expected to sacrifice? Or do you secretly favor one? Do you tell one child things about another that you'll never say if that child was sitting beside you? Are you closer to the child who gives you money? Have you made your children's spouses feel they're outsiders competing for acceptance? Or have you unintentionally created a mommy's camp or daddy's camp? And here's another difficult one. If your children dislike one another, have you ever asked yourself whether you contributed to it? Now, I think we should listen to this, ask ourselves those questions as parents, and then imagine something. Imagine your children many years from now, and there's a family occasion, and they're sitting around the table. What will they remember? What will they laugh? Will they tell stories? Will they, you know, talk to one another, or would they not even be at the table at all? We spend so much of our lives preparing an inheritance for our children, school fees, property, investments, businesses, and all that. But there's another inheritance that will never appear on an asset sheet, and it's the relationship our children have with one another. So please, 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 today as parents, I want us to ask ourselves what we're leaving for our children and what we're leaving between them. And let's make sure it's something beautiful. It's been great sharing this time with you on Life with Tara today. Next week, Sunday, 1 p.m. on this station, we'll have another topic that will help us to live our lives well and to live our lives with purpose and intention. Until then, have a beautiful week and see you next week, Sunday. Thank you. Bye.
Women Radio 91.7.